I realized, to my wonderment, that I'm somewhere in the 50s in terms of the number of episodes of this that I have been doing. And
Actually, I think we're at 62 for 63.
62. Oh my God. So clearly it's been more than a year. And I did miss a few Fridays. So it's somewhat more than a year, maybe a year and a quarter. And one of the things, and I need to comment on that today for a very special reason. It ties together two themes I'm struggling with. All this time, the damn pandemic has been playing out in the background of our lives, where I've been showing up every week and talking, and it's as if I haven't mentioned I don't think I haven't mentioned the damn horrible time we're living through once. So today I feel like saying something about it. Like all my clients, I feel like I've run out of some degrees of resiliency. I feel dragged down by it. I feel drained by it. I feel saddened by it. I feel hopeless about it sometimes. I am, after all, now 90 and a half years old, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. And I have dark visions as it continues to run that the rest of my life, for whatever period of time that is going to be spent in the middle of a pandemic, and that the quality of life may not improve much before what it currently is at the moment. I understand a lot about epidemiology now, and I know we have a huge amount, probably 65 to 70% of the Earth's population has not been vaccinated at all. So the likelihood that the damn thing is going to burn itself out in a natural way, and by a natural way, I mean people are just going to get sick and die, and the ones who don't die from getting sick will have some immunity, and eventually it will burn out by just natural selection of unvaccinated people. But that's probably going to take years and years. And in the meantime, new variations are going to grow as the damn thing continues to live. And at some point, we may need to develop new vaccines because the existing vaccines are not taking care of the new variant. So uh, I may spend the rest of my life trapped in this kind of dystopian landscape of confusion, illness, bursting hospital bed schemes, and people being cut off from each other significantly. Now it comes to land in my life, not as a general malaise, but in very specific ways now. I now have 4 clients who are pleading with me that they would like to come in person, and that somehow the quality of the work we do is just not the same if they can't sit in a room with me, look at me, and interact with me. And I'm responsive to that. That touches me. And I would like to do that. At the same time, I'm frightened to do that. Uh, my colleagues here know that I've had a good excuse for the last few months because the property on my property in which our offices are situated is the garage building. The upstairs apartments in the garage building are offices for my wife and myself. But the city of Santa Monica has forced me to do earthquake retrofitting of all things. And I've had to shore up the building, put some steel beams in, and pay significant amounts of money to a contractor to get it ready to withstand an even any worse earthquake than it's already been through since 1924. And that's a fucking significant number of serious earthquakes that it's weathered without collapsing. So now it's even sturdier for even a bigger one that could come. And the work is coming to a conclusion this week. And so I am, at least in terms of architecture and structure, I am cleared to reopen and make use of the building again. So I don't have that excuse. Well, I can't because I have no place to see you at the moment. So I'm struggling with who, if anybody, I'm going to see and what I'm going to do. And I was getting ready to do it for vaccinated people, maybe with the stricture of I would only see the vaccinated people outside in my patio. I have a nice patio table there, and I'd be sitting 6 feet from them, and I would be outdoors. But after a long time, the damn rainy season is descending on Southern California. And it's cold for at least for Southern California. I'm not sure I want to sit outdoors in the rain with clients trying to make sense out of what they're saying to me. So I either have to go indoors into the office or forget about it for a while. Then piled on top of that, and this is a lead into what I'm going to be talking about. When is it? Today's Friday. It is Sunday afternoon is my daughter Karen's 60th birthday. And we made plans several months ago. Plans were being made on the basis that the pandemic seemed to be lifting. So this is in two parts. She's going to treat us to something in honor of her birthday, and we're going to treat her to something. We were going to take her out to a nice dinner with her and her kids, and she got tickets for Hamilton. And we have evening tickets on Saturday to go see Hamilton, the five of us. So then Omicron comes and it starts to run out of control. And all kinds of talking heads are saying a variety of different things about the danger and risk of the spread of Omicron. And I'm tied up in knots. I don't want to go out to dinner with my daughter and celebrate her 60th birthday and then go to the theater and die as a result of showing up to do those events. On the other hand, the chance to do those both events feels so sweet and so special and so important. I don't want to say no. So I am doing this now and talking about it now. I have additional information. My wife called the restaurant that it's right next door to the Pantages Theater, and we have a reservation for the five of us. They will give us a table that's 10 feet away from any other table, and everybody who goes into the restaurant has to be vaccinated and present proof of vaccination, and all the working staff there have been vaccinated. So that seems like some kind of comfort. And maybe that's worth taking a chance on. I haven't figured out how to eat with a mask on yet. That's a difficult challenge. And then in the middle of the night, I said, for Christ's sake, we're going to a theater that has a balcony in it. There are probably going to be hundreds of people present in that theater. And we're going to be sitting in rows of chairs, and there's probably going to be somebody seated next to one or another of us, right up on both sides, abutted against one or another of us. Who the hell are those people? And what am I stepping into by going to the theater? And in the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep. So I got up, I went online, and I typed Pantages Theater, Hollywood, California, COVID protocol. And I tried to see what they were doing. And that was somewhat reassuring. Nobody will be admitted to the theater, even if they have a ticket, without bringing proof of full vaccination. Everybody will have to wear a mask and keep it on while they're attending the performance. They will not be any milling during intermission. People will be expected to sit exactly where they are until the intermission is over. And they've installed a new air circulation system into the theater to try and sterilize the air as it's being circulated. So that felt at least a modicum of comfort that I was hearing. So now I'm passing this over to Aaron. Aaron, you seem to stay on top of these things. And you read all kinds of articles about them. So I'm going to make you my consultant this moment. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's a it's a very complicated question, right? I think in about a month you'll have your answer as far as if this is happening in about a month from now,
Yes.
you'd be no. You would say you would not go for sure because the thing is doubling at an R naught of 2 or 5. Basically it's doubling every 2 days. It seems from everything I'm seeing that it's less disease promoting, but if you infect a vast number of people, then even that smaller number of sick people will kind of overwhelm things. So I think it's going to get a little dramatic. That's my guess. Right now, for the average person, I would probably say it's not too great a risk to do those things. Although personally, I don't eat indoors and do stuff like that.
What's an average person?
Someone not 90. Because, basically at 50, things, the odds start to turn against you. And every decade after that, they get more and more. And, 80 and 90-year-olds are, frankly, the majority of people that are really having the
Will
biggest
die, yes.
problems. Yeah, yeah, that and the hyperglycemic. People with very high blood sugar, that seems to be an obvious thing. So, would I want you to do it? No. That's just, now maybe,
I forgot her name. One of the journalists that appears on MSNBC periodically. She has made a specialty over the years of her consulting on the story of infectious diseases. And
Mhm.
she was very alarmed by the new variant. And she said the reason it has been seen as not as dangerous necessarily is that it first blew up in significant numbers in South Africa. And the South African population on the average is 20 years younger than the population in other European cities. They have a very
Yeah.
young population with very few elderly people. So it's not surprising that it doesn't seem as virulent. In Belgium now and in England, the curve is rising straight up. It's
Yep.
rising.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
quite big.
even spreading out over time. It's a
No.
very dramatic upward explosion right now. She
There's
scared the
also
shit out of me.
there's also probably in South Africa greater prior immunity because it did run through pretty badly there,
Yes.
and it's possible that it's a leaner population. There's a lot to do with developed nations, obesity, and the severity of how it hits people. So we don't know what it will do exactly. We can look at England; they're pretty similar, and then we'll see but they're definitely spreading very quickly there. But there's a two,
Yeah, it's
3 week
rising
lag.
exponentially.
Yeah, which is very hard for our monkey brains to wrap our heads around. It's just everything seems fine, then suddenly it isn't. So,
Well, maybe I could do this as a grand suicide gesture and just
yeah,
make die for a noble cause.
yeah, yeah.
Die for Hamilton?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, the
I mean,
noble cause is to have a lovely experience with my
yeah,
daughter and my grandchildren.
yeah,
Maybe that's worth dying for
maybe.
because
I
I
mean,
gotta die anyhow.
the
And I guess
upside is,
I would die pretty quickly. I guess if you get it badly, it goes within a few weeks and you're gone.
yeah, yeah. The upside is to at least maybe take away some of the dystopian part that you were talking about. I think that this particular variant, because it's so good and so effective at infecting people, that the majority of people are just going to get it. And that will take away a lot of the novelty aspect of this virus, that even if it does mutate in the future, it will all have some base immunity beyond even vaccination. And
Oh
actual
yeah,
infection
I think it's
is
gonna burn
better.
itself out eventually.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe this might be the beginning of the end. This one might really kind of creates essentially a base herd immunity.
Mm.
Well, maybe that's worth what my laying down my life for.
Yeah, yeah. Ugh. I mean, outdoors, I'm still not scared at all. I'm not really scared indoors. I'm pretty sure I'll be all right. But like I said, when you get up to being 90 and stuff, you're a slightly more special. You're always special, Arthur.
What does Hermine
Well,
want you to do?
go.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Oh, what's really funny is that Die Hard. I love Die Hard. That's such a crazy movie. It's my
Uh-huh.
favorite Christmas. It's my favorite Christmas movie
Uh-huh.
because it's about crime and thrills and everything else. Had nothing to do with Christmas whatsoever, except it plays out with the background of a Christmas celebration going on. And
Yeah.
the Aero Theater, is showing it as part of the Christmas season. And I said, hey, I've been saying let's watch our DVD of Die Hard to celebrate Christmas. And then I came home when I saw it's playing at the Aero Theater, and I said, hey, let's go to the Aero Theater. She said, oh, it's too dangerous. I'm not going to the Aero Theater. So this is the woman who won't go to the Aero Theater. That's much smaller than the Pantages, but she's willing
Yeah.
to go with her daughter and grandchildren to this very large, massive place that hundreds of people are going to be in.
Yeah,
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, right? It's probably a very low probability, and the truth is, 99% of people survive the thing. Um, so I'm not a statistician, but you know, I play one on TV, so I'm sure the odds are very much in your favor that nothing happens. But yeah.
Yeah, I was told uh, when I got my cancer diagnosis that I had a 30% chance of living for 3 years. And that seemed comforting to me. And now the latest statistic is that the most of the people who die are over 60, I think it is, the
Hmm.
majority of people who die from COVID. And up until now, that's been one person in 100 across the globe.
Yeah.
So that's still a very small number, one person in 100. And maybe that's the odds I have of getting sick if I go to this event. It's one in a
Hmm.
hundred.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Should,
exactly. Yeah, I always
should
say,
I?
but my only counter argument to that is something like, if I told you your plane had a 1 in 100 chance of going down, would you fly it? But yeah, I think it's probably even in those situations is probably even less than that. Your odds of getting it, your odds of actually having a bad case, you're boosted, which when you're
Yes.
boosted, it seems like you've probably got about 2 or 3 months of pretty intense immunity. That's what it seems to look like.
All right. Thank you for the
Mm.
consultation.
Yeah.
And that's my lead in.
Hmm.
And if you guys want to mute yourself now, that's fine.
All
Okay.
right.
I'll keep laughing. Today, as I had promised, I would talk about my experience being the father of the fourth of my children who are not my children because none of them are biologically my children. That's the one who started out as my stepdaughter, Karen. And she was the younger of the two siblings I moved in with when I started to live with my present wife. She was 6.5 then. Uh, from the beginning, she took to me. She had had a kind of problematic relationship with her biological father before I appeared on the scene. He was a person who seemed to like her older sister much better, seek out the company of her older sister, take her older sister on special experiences, and leave Karen alone at home. And so the fact that I was there, and after that, that her father moved to Northern California, opened up the path between the two of us. I don't think she felt a lot of loyalty conflicts enjoying the experiences I was providing for her. Amy did. I may have said on a previous occasion, because of the strange and wonderful structure of my family, that one of the things I did with both of my daughters, and I'll call them my daughters, as I was raising them, since 2 years in, their biological father moved all the way up to near the Oregon border in California. Didn't see them except maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I was the man they were living with. I was raising them. I was there every day. I was tucking them in at night. I was reading bedtime stories to them. I was taking them on excursions to one place or another. I was driving them to school sometimes. I was the dad in residence, even though I was not biologically their parent. I felt very much that this was a restitution for me because my former wife was doing whatever she could to deprive me of visitation from my own children. So I was hungry for relationship with young ones, and they certainly filled in the gap for me too. It was a delight to have them. I didn't see them building a step family. I didn't see that as an impediment. I saw that as a blessing that I had inherited when I got married. And they were delightful, each of them in their own way. And once in a while, a pain in the ass, but mainly delightful. And so I made them an offer as they came into adolescence. I offered when each one turned 12, for their 12th birthday, I would take them aside and say, "You're getting older now. If you would like, when you get to be 18, I would be happy to adopt you. And you would become legally my child and my heir if you agreed to that." And you can tell your father about it if you choose to do it. You can keep it a secret from him. I don't care. But I love you and I would be happy to embrace you as my child. And we would be able to tell the world when they ask, is she your daughter? I'd be able to say yes. And when you get asked, am I your dad, their dad, that you would be able to say yes. Well, I think both of them were very, very touched. They felt pleased. They mattered so much to me that I would offer to make them my real children. But the older one refused. She said didn't want to be disloyal to her father that way. And I didn't nag her or try to make her feel guilty for not doing that. I said, that's fine. And when she got married in her 20s, both he and I walked her down the aisle. The young one was thrilled. Sharon was thrilled that I wanted to adopt her. She couldn't wait. And we did it on her 18th birthday. We went into judge's chamber. The papers were filed. The judge interviewed us and then declared Karen legally my daughter. And she has been ever since. So she is my daughter by law now. She's no longer my stepdaughter. Uh, Memories of Karen. Uh, she was formidably bright. And she was also, in some strange ways, very leisurely. She hit her developmental landmarks at a kind of slow pace. It was within normal limits, but it was sort of at the outside of the normal limit. That was about walking and talking and all the other things to do. And my poor wife thought that she may be handicapped in the beginning, but she wasn't. She just took her time at everything. Uh, I'll jump forward. She didn't actually have her first date until she was in college, not in high school, but in college. We would have secret conversations, my wife and I, and worry, is she really gay and unwilling to tell us because she seemed never to bring a guy around or never to go out on a date with anybody. She had lots of friends. She had female friends she would spend time with, male friends she would spend time with, but clearly she was not in any courtship rituals. She seemed to be asexual, and we were very concerned about her. It all turned out to be nonsense. She was just doing everything at her own delayed pace. Uh, in some ways, she liked being a tomboy. So she quickly learned that I was handy with tools and she wanted to be my helper. I remember how grateful her mien was because there was all kinds of crappy deferred maintenance on the little rundown house I moved into. Drawer pulls wouldn't work, knobs weren't right, the color television wouldn't go on. And I got everything running. I made everything working smoothly. One of the last things we worked on, I don't think anybody outside of Southern California, maybe Arizona, knows what a swamp cooler is. It is a structure that's put up on the roof of houses in hot areas. This is a primitive form of trying to do some cooling. If you turn it on with a light switch in the house, a pump starts running. It's hooked up to water, and water runs into the thing, and it's got a lot of uh, I don't know what to call it. It's like spongy stuff. It's got stuff to absorb the water. So it gets wet and then a fan is blowing and the water from outside is pulled in through the wetness on that material around the structure of this thing and then blown down into the house. So the air that comes from the swamp cooler, it's called a swamp cooler because it uses water to the evaporation of water to cool air. You can drop the temperature 5 or 10 degrees in a hot house with a swamp cooler. It's not nearly as effective or working as is an air conditioning system. But many houses in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in the hotter parts of Los Angeles were constructed with swamp coolers on them. And the one in that house was not working and it was miserably hot in the summertime. So she and I went up on the up a ladder up on the roof and I started disassembling it. I took the covers off. I tried to see where the mechanism was. I had never looked inside of one. So it had something like a toilet ball that went up and down. So when a toilet ball was down, it would open and the water would come in for a while. And then the toilet ball would go up again and turn the water off. And I could see it just gotten stuck if you turn the switch on, the fan would run, but there was no water in the structure, so it wasn't doing any cooling. And it only took us about 20 minutes to get it working again. And I felt so proud, and my wife was so happy, and my little girl was so adoring that she had a man who was creative in that way, could fix things. And my God, the big service, not service porch, screen porch, color television. I don't know what had happened. The dials had just been turned in a crazy way, so that it was turned down to as dark as possible. No picture was appearing. And it was fairly easy to get the picture up and running again on the color TV. And then I went to the hardware store and I got a new roof antenna. And we went back up on the roof. And we put a much better, higher powered antenna to get the signals in, because there was no cable then. It was all coming in over the ether. And we had a really snazzy color television now in the house. That was great. And I glued things, I put things together and made things work. And she was my partner in creative solving of problems and fixing broken things. Oh, I fixed broken toys they had. She helped me with that. Everything was working. I love that. I love fixing objects. Fixing objects is so much easier than fixing people. The number of variables is fairly limited. And if you can figure out what's wrong, it only takes 10, 15, 20 minutes to make it work again. I wish I could do that with people. The second thing I remember, the next enterprise we took on in common, is we moved out of that little cramped house we were living in that I was doing so much restoration work on, and moved into, I think I described as a wonderful duplex where mother and I lived upstairs in our apartment and had our offices there, and the kids lived downstairs, and the neighborhood gang was always in residence downstairs. But that place was unusual for California houses. It was built in 1920, I believe, and it had a basement in it. It was an unfinished basement. The studs were there, and the furnace was there, and the water heaters were there. It was not finished in any way. It was there were concrete walls half the way up, and then studs from there, and a concrete floor. And there was a sump in there. When it rained a lot, rain would seep in through the foundation somehow and wind up piling up on the floor of the basement there. And then there was a pump to pump it out. The pump wasn't working. That was another thing I fixed when we moved into the new house. I got the damn thing to pump the water out as the water accumulated. So I saw the basement down there, and I bought her a Brownie camera, and I bought both kids Brownie cameras back then, and I had a camera, and we were taking pictures periodically, and I had a brainstorm. I said to Karen, you know what? When I was a teenager, I had a darkroom. I had trays to develop big photos. I had a tank to develop negatives. I had an enlarger. I said, I could do that again. I've never learned how to do color, but I know how to do black and white. How would you like it if we put a darkroom down in the basement? It would be fairly easy to light proof the rest of it. It's already underground down there, and I could show you how to develop pictures. And she loved that. And so that was the next thing. She started running a business at school. She now knew how to develop pictures and make enlargements and print pictures, and she would do it for her friends for a very nominal cost. They no longer had to take black and white pictures to the drugstore or wherever they were taking them to develop them. And that was fun for us to do. Uh, she also, because I was starting to get interested in the wilderness and we were starting to go backpacking with other families, she also developed a real interest in backpacking in the wilderness. And she was a very good companion. Her sister complained all the time. This is too far. It's too hard. I'm having trouble catching my breath. My knee hurts. Her mother had to say to her on several occasions, yes, this is very arduous. It is physically uncomfortable. We're going to see great beauty. We're passing through great beauty you're not paying any attention to right now. And it is hard to get there. This is a good metaphor for what life is about. You put up with discomfort and difficulty and challenge because there's a beautiful outcome if you're willing to bear through it, but you have to go through it to get there. And she said, how about doing something? You know, when you start complaining all the time, it's very demoralizing ourselves. We're struggling with our own pain and our own difficulty. Could you just be quiet? We understand this is hard. We understand you hurt, but please keep it to yourself. That would be a blessing for the rest of it. Karen never complained. She was always exuberant going up the trail. Didn't matter how steep it was. Uh, and then the next thing happened. It was my 50th birthday. And we had I know how that started. One summer, before I got a divorce, my daughter Naomi was just recently given to us in adoption. She was still an infant. She was just beginning to crawl. I said to my former wife, Diane, we have a couple weeks off. Let's go rent someplace, somewhere nice, and go just be on vacation for a couple weeks. And I did some thinking about where to go, and for some reason, Balboa Island in Newport Bay appealed to me. I thought, and there were summer rentals of houses on that little island. I thought this will be a very nice place. There are beaches on both sides. There's water on both sides. There's the ocean, or you could swim in the bay rather than the ocean. This is probably terrific. So we went there, and I would have coffee on the beach at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd go out and sit on the beach and look at the water. And I noticed there was a sailboat rental place right across where the ferry boat ran back and forth between the island and the mainland. There was a sailboat rental place, and they rented small sailboats. So I became a student of looking at small sailboats going by. And I saw what they did with the sails, and I saw what they did with the tiller and how they made the fucking thing work. And I got into an old habit of mine that it took me years to get over. I was unwilling to let anybody teach me anything. My academic teachers in school were fine, but when it came to any kind of skill, I didn't want to have to show my ineptitude to anybody and show up as incompetent and have them start taking me out of incompetence and toward competence. So this played out in many ways. If I got lost in a strange city, I would not ask anybody directions. I would have to figure it out for myself. I didn't want to show my stupidity and vulnerability to anybody. And I was, in some ways, I think there are a large number of men who act that way. They will not ask anybody for directions. They'll muddle through somehow with maps or whatever they have to try and figure it out in the end by themselves and master it on their own. I used to accompany my father around the golf course, and he had a caddy, but he liked my company, so I'd go with him. And I saw how golf was played. I saw how golf clubs were swung. I saw which kind of golf clubs you used depending on how far from the hole you were, ending with a putter that you used when you were on the green. So I understood something about the usage of golf clubs, and then my father died and I went on without him, but I inherited his old beat up golf clubs. And there I was at the University of Michigan many years later. And the University of Michigan has a gloriously beautiful golf course in the town of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And it was open at very little cost to students if you had a student enrollment card. And I had a friend, a fellow graduate student, who said, he had actually played golf a few times and could I go out in a golf course? He didn't have any golf clubs. And I said, well, you know what? I have golf clubs. I have my father's old golf clubs. You have some golf knowledge. So let us go together and we'll start playing golf. but we were poor starving students, and the golf course closed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The starter didn't start anybody around after 4 o'clock in the afternoon because it took 3 or 4 hours to finish the round, and it was getting dark. And even in the summertime, it would be dark by 8, and that was rushing to start at 4 and even get done by 8. So we became experts at rushing, and I started hitting golf balls. I was miserable, but I was slowly getting better. And nobody was showing me how to play golf, but I was learning how to play golf. I looked at books. I got some books on how to play golf to help myself. So here I was. I'm now looking at sailboats, and that looks interesting. So one day I went out, I took Karen with me. We took the ferry across to the sailboat rental slip, and I said, that looks interesting. I'd like to rent a boat. They said, have you ever been out sailing? And I lied. I said, well, I've been out with a friend a few times on his boat. And it was a weekday, so there was, and it was early in the day, so there wasn't much interest made by anybody's part in renting boats. The wind came up about 2 in the afternoon, and there were only zephyrs early. I like that. So out we went with the boat, and I was flopping all over the place and veering this way and that way and letting go of the sheets that were flapping and sitting there helplessly. But I got the hang of it after a while, and I started sailing, and she liked sailing. So I'll fast forward to my 50th birthday. We had it down in Newport at a lovely hotel in Newport. And one of the things I wanted to do was I was going to rent all the boats. There were about 30 or 40 people there. I was going to rent all the boats at the sailboat rental place, and we were going to have a regatta. We were going to fill the channel with our boats. And so Karen was my crew that day. She was on the boat. I was the lead boat, and they were following. And it was a wonderful experience. That was adorable. I wish I could go back and do that again. That was a highlight. I also liked the friends that she would bring home. And since she liked sailing, for her 16th birthday, we bought her a Hobie cat, a 14-foot Hobie cat that she could keep at home and have her own boat. She didn't have, oh, we acquired a family boat then too. Soon after that birthday party, I got a 17-foot Venture that was sitting on a trailer, and we could take it out occasionally. I didn't use it nearly enough. That's one of my regrets about their adolescence, but she was always eager to come with me until we got her own boat. She then discovered there was a regatta on Tuesday evenings. Many people, 20 or 30 people who owned, that was the smaller Hobies. They came in 16-foot sizes and 14-foot sizes. The people who owned 14-foot little ones would have a regatta outside of the breakwater at Marina Del Rey and race the damn things. And she became very good at it. So the only trouble, aggravation, fear she inflicted on us was she was about 16 and a half then. She'd taken her boat out, and she was in a regatta, and she said she'd be home around 11 o'clock. She had to get her boat out, the regatta would be over. She usually went out to dinner with them, a late dinner with the mob after the regatta was over. So she was going to have dinner. Then she had to hose down her boat and get the salt water off of it. But she expected to be home by 11. So 11 came and went. 11:30 came and went. And there were no cell phones back then. So there was no way to call her. We didn't know where she was. Midnight came, and Hermine is getting panicked. Hermine is very good at imagining disasters, and sometimes she has trouble putting probability figures on disasters. So I just went on local news. I tried to see, was there any talk of any tidal waves in the marina, or were any boats lost at sea that the Coast Guard was rescuing? And there was nothing about any problems in Santa Monica Bay. And I kept saying to Hermine, I think she'll be okay. I'll tell you what, if it gets to be 1:30 in the morning, I will call the Coast Guard and put out an all points bulletin for her and tell the Coast Guard to go searching for her. But I think she will show up. At 1:15, she opened the door and came in the door. And her mother said, where have you been? Oh, she said, I'm so sorry. I won the race. I got the trophy. She said, I was so busy enjoying myself and talking to people. And we hung out for dinner so late, I didn't realize what time it is. I'm sorry I put you people through such fear. And that was the only trouble she ever caused us. And I feel very blessed that that was the only trouble she ever caused us. She felt so comfortable at home that she graduated summa cum laude, and was one of the valedictorians from Fairfax High School. And she went on to UCLA. And the idiot didn't learn anything. She majored in psychology at UCLA. And she was happy at home because we had now lived to Pacific Palisades. Her Hobie Cat was on the beach just below our house. She could go down a trail and get on the beach and launch her Hobie Cat through the surf. So she liked living where we were living. And she had been very creative. She said, you know, we live on the last street on this hill. Our view is blocked by trees on the Getty property and by the houses next door. I bet you if we went up on the roof, we could see the ocean and the bay from up on the roof. I said, oh, that's an interesting idea. So she and I went up on the roof. And sure enough, we had an unobstructed view of 180 degrees of Santa Monica Bay from our flat roof up there. And I said, I know what we're going to do. I'm going to build a deck up here. We're going to put a stairway up through your closet because it's a pretty big closet. I think there's room for a stairway to the deck up above. And we're going to put a hot tub and a hot plate and a refrigerator and a shower up there. And we're going to be able to go up there and relax and sit in the hot tub and stare out at the bay. And that's what we did. So she was very happy staying home. She'd bring her friends over. We had a lap pool in the backyard and a hot tub up on the roof of the structure. And that was a good place for young people to hang out. She brought many young people for us to meet. And her sister was gone and married by that time. So she was the only child living at home. When she graduated, it began to change. Uh, One of the things that I was given when I left the California School of Professional Psychology and gave up my administrative post was a ticket that any of my offspring could get tuition free if they wanted to attend the California School of Professional Psychology, that they could go for gratis. And I said, do you have any interest in doing that? She said, no, they treated you like crap. They were mean. They took your position away from you. I don't want to go spend time there. And I said, well, I want to go to the San Diego campus. You have a friend who's going to UC San Diego. Maybe you'd like to attend. She said, no, I don't want to have any part of that school. And the schools, in my mind, the school is an ugly institution. I'm going to go to a Department of Psychology in a traditional program because that's what I went to at UCLA as an undergraduate. I'm going to go on to graduate school. So she got a very nice scholarship at Ohio State. And for the first time, she was leaving home. She was going to go spend 4, 5, 6 years in Columbus, Ohio. We took her to the airport, and I remember hugging her and telling her how wonderful she was and that she was starting on a new journey. And I had every reason to believe that it was going to be a good one. We had 3 weeks earlier than the day she got on the plane, been at Toronto at the American Psychological Association convention. She was a student member of APA, and she came with us to the convention. And then we stopped through Columbus on the way back because we wanted to make sure she had everything she needed when she arrived from that airplane flight. So we looked for an apartment together. We rented the apartment together. We tried to figure out what furniture she needed for the apartment because she wasn't going to live in student housing. She was now a young professional to be and a graduate student. She was going to live in an apartment by herself. And we had to get a refrigerator and a stove, and we rented some pieces of furniture, and we went to a used furniture store and got the rest of the pieces of furniture. So her bed was made up and waiting for her, and we put in staples. We couldn't put in fresh food yet. She'd have to get that when she arrived. And we bought her a car. We bought her a very nice late model used car, and we had transferred the title to her. And we had the car was waiting in the parking structure of the apartment building for her when she got off the plane. And everything was in order for her. All she had to do was take her clothing with her, and some of it, and some precious items were being shipped, and the manager of the apartment building agreed to receive what was being shipped and hold it until she arrived. So all the ducks were in a row. All we had to do was say goodbye to her. We had watched her over the little birdie flying away from the nest and made sure there was another nest waiting for her. And I told her that a really wonderful adventure was starting. I knew she would do well. She had done well at everything else. I was not worried about her. We'd come to visit her periodically. Of course, she could come home for whatever vacations or holidays she felt like coming home for. And I gave her a hug, and she turned and walked away, and she started crying, and her mother started crying, and I started crying. I'm crying again, remembering it was the first time that we were really going to be separate from the day I had come to live with her until that day. Then she did what she needed to do developmentally. She started to go through the curriculum, and the thing she was most interested, she had a minor in social psychology. She liked her social psychology professors. They had interesting things to talk about. And I had always enjoyed my minimal exposure to social psychology. And she was bringing home stories of interesting things. And she was telling me what she was learning in her clinical classes when she came home. And I could begin to believe what I was experiencing was true. And I didn't like it, but I never scolded her, or it wasn't up to me to like it or not like it. I could feel her beginning to do what we call in our profession individuate with me. She was not going to walk in my footsteps. She was not going to be in my shadow. She was becoming a very different kind of psychologist than I was or was interested in being. She would come home with all kinds of excitement about something that somebody was teaching her. And I would tell her what I would know about that, or I would try to add something or tell her something else that was interesting about what she was telling me. And she didn't want to hear it. Her eyes would glaze over and she would brush me off to one side. What I was trying to add in or be part of the mix with, she wanted no part of. She wanted to be separate and bonded with her professors, and she didn't want to be in my thrall or in my footsteps anymore. And that hurt. It really hurt. It isn't what I expected. She had followed me into photography. She had followed me into sailing. She had followed me into wanting to become a psychologist. And suddenly the road was turning to the left, and she was making a left turn and going away from and off the path that I was on. Just like I congratulated Amy, her sister, when she told us she wasn't going to come for Thanksgiving anymore, and that she was going to start making her own Thanksgivings. I try to support and honor my daughter's growing interest in topics in my field or adjacent to my field that I was not terribly interested in or aware of, or didn't make a great difference in my life as it was beginning to make a great difference in hers. And I was not competing for the position of leader and heroism in her life with the faculty members that she was anointing as the people who were important to her and whose shadow she was interested in standing in. So she finished graduate school. We went to her graduation, and she knew she wanted to go back to Southern California. She liked the beach. She liked surfing. She liked her boat. And she wanted to pick up her lifestyle. But what was she going to do? She didn't, for the first time, she said she didn't want to live at home anymore. She needed to earn a living. She wanted to be independent and self-determining. And she tried various kinds of things. The one job she could get was working in the arena of workers' compensation appeals suits. She went to work for the insurance carriers. She was doing a lot of evaluations. Were people malingering? Were they really entitled to some benefits? She was representing the defendants in workers' comp action, and she was horrified. She felt like she would be punished if she told them this was a good suit and they should settle. They wanted her to find reasons why they should reject what was being offered and be tough. And she was to be a hired gun. So she felt the ethical challenge and the corruption of that. And it didn't feel good. And she said, I can't do this. This is not going to be my career. She was making a lot of money. They were paying her well for what she was doing because she's very articulate, was capable of writing very, very good reports. But it was a constant tension for them trying to tame her and to teach who she really should represent. It wasn't the people who claimed to be injured. It was the interests of the insurance carriers. That's who she should represent. And she didn't want to play the game. So she thought, you know what? I liked it in Columbus. I need to get hours for licensure. I don't want to get hours for licensure doing this crap that I'm doing, and it's unethical and it's unpleasant. She said, I have contacts back in Columbus. I think I may go back to Columbus, and I'm going to see if I can get a postdoc. So I'll be able to get some more training. I'll improve my skills, and I will get the supervised hours I need to come back and get licensed in California. So she proceeded to do that, and she got hired to be. She got hired into a postdoc in neuropsychology, something I knew little about. And she went to work in the hospital, the Columbus University Hospital, in the neuropsychiatric unit. And she had a lot of paralyzed patients, head injured patients, wheelchair ridden patients, all kinds of people she was working with. And she was helping them. She was learning how to do assessments about what parts of the brain have been damaged that produce these kinds of symptoms, and to do adjustment issues to get the people past the trauma and out of feeling so handicapped and having the courage to push against the limits and to reclaim themselves as best as possible. She was doing very noble work. It was work I knew little about and didn't have a particular interest in, but off she went. And I respected her for that. The other to do we had was when she went away the first time to be an undergraduate at Ohio State, I had made what she claims is a mistake. I should have known better. I said to her, you know, your bedroom is a little bit bigger than the other bedroom. The other bedroom is currently serving as my home office. That's where I do my paperwork and keep my records and have my filing cabinets and talk to people on the telephone when I need to. I would like to inherit your bedroom and move all that stuff into your bedroom. And we'll make the bedroom that's now my office the guest bedroom. You can have the closet in there for anything you want to leave in the closet. When you come to visit, you will have that as the place you visit us and stay with us in. And she threw a fit. She said, no, you can't do that to me. I have all my t-shirts in a special drawer in the bureau in there, and I have posters on the wall that are special to me. And I know that room. It's my comfort zone when I come home. And please don't take my room away from me. So I said, okay, I assume you're not going to keep it for the rest of your life. I'll wait for you to instruct me when you're ready to surrender your room, and maybe I can take it over and start using it for my own purposes, knowing that we will always want a guest room. And of course, you're going to be one of the prime guests that come to visit us when you're not in residence with us. So you'll get first dibs on the room I'm currently having my office in. So I waited. When she came back and started working for the workers' comp mill, she was in her own apartment, a small apartment she rented for herself. I said, okay, you have your own place now. Can I swap rooms with you? Can I take that over? She said, no, I may be here, but some weekends I just want to come over and stay in the house again and have my Hobie cat down on the beach and go surfing or something and be with my friends up in the hot tub. I don't even have to worry about driving late at night. And I want to stay in my old bedroom. It's a comfort to me to visit it. Please don't take it apart yet. I said, okay. Then she went off to Columbus, and while she was in Columbus, finally, as she was getting ready to finish her first doctoral year, she gave me permission at last to swap the rooms. Then she came back. She finished her postdoctoral residency, and she got a paying job at the Downtown Veterans Administration Hospital. They particularly need somebody who is good with neuropsych assessments and working with veterans. And she'd had a lot of them at the hospital at Ohio State, and they hired her, and they were paying her a reasonable wage, and she managed to get a decent hospital here in Santa Monica. So she was still somewhere on the west side, not too far from us. And we saw her a lot. She came and stayed with us periodically. She still wasn't dating. She would occasionally have somebody in for dinner or bring somebody to our house. We could tell there was no romantic chemistry between the two of them. As far as we knew, she was still a virgin, or she was a secretive lesbian. We didn't know what the fuck was going on, and we didn't pry, and we didn't ask her to tell us. We just loved her and enjoyed the pleasure of her company. About 6, 8 months after she started working at the VA, she said, I'm troubled. I don't really like this. People on the staff are telling me, I could get good retirement benefits. I should just stay in the VA and tough it out and keep doing this. And I'm needed, but I don't like the politics in this place. I really don't like the quality of care I'm asked to give. This isn't what I wanted to do with all my life. And once more, I served as a catalyst. I got her sister turned on to becoming a landscape architect. So Karen asked me, anything that I might consider doing? It doesn't have to be permanent. Is there something I could do just to get out of here, do something else, and think about what else I might do with my life? And I said, well, you've often come to watch me. I've been in the governance of the American Psychological Association a lot. You've often enjoyed coming to watch the APA Council of Representatives at work because it's like a legislative body, and you see the parliamentary procedure, and you see the introducing of motions, and you see advancing policy proposals of one sort or another. So you have a kind of interest in policy and procedures of legislative bodies. She said, I don't know if you know this, but the American Psychological Association every year places 6 psychologists somewhere early in their careers as workers in the US Congress. They go as staff people. They're assigned to either a senator or a congressman, and they become part of that person's staff. And they begin to understand how public policy works, and they carry out whatever assignments are given to them. And they can give some consultation on human relations issues and on mental health issues and on a variety of other topics that they've accumulated some wisdom about in graduate school. And these fellowships are run jointly by the American Association for the Advancement of Science and the American Psychological Association. So there are 6 psychologists, but there are physicists who have been through who are new doctorates in physics. They're from all the hard physical sciences and from the social sciences. People go to work in a congressman's office. And she said, that sounds exciting. She said, can you pull any strings? I said, I don't think so. I don't have any clout with the people who make those decisions. I can give you an evaluation. I can write you a letter of reference. I'd be happy to do that even if you're my daughter. And God damn it, much to my surprise, she was chosen. And she left the VA, and now she's moving to Washington, D.C. for a year. And she closed up her office and off she went. And that was really a special and exciting year. I'm going to stop in a few minutes. I will stop with 2 things. First of all, she was chosen. It's like a sorority or fraternity rush. All the candidates to work with Congressman show up and introduce themselves to various congressmen. The congressman interviews them for a while, and a marriage has to be made. The congressman has to like and feel that he or she is getting an asset, and the person going has to listen to the kinds of issues the congressperson is interested in, and would they like to help advance those issues. So a marriage is being made, and she wound up with Congressman Ed Markey, who was the guy who had taken up Jack Kennedy's congressional district in Boston and was a nice liberal Democrat. And she liked the kinds of things he was working on. He liked her. They liked each other as human beings. He was like an uncle to her in many ways. It was really a lovely bond. And she had two projects she was working on while he was there. Wow, they changed her life too. Uh, One of them was he was pissed off about the number of attack weapons that were being imported into the United States. By best count, the best statistics that the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Drug Administration branch of the Treasury had, that there were over 100 million guns in the United States at that point, many decades ago, and the number was there were a number just pouring in. The Chinese versions of AK-47s were being unloaded in huge numbers, and they were being absorbed by gangs and all kinds of people without stop and without any problem. And he very much wanted to get them banned. He wanted to get ownership banned and certainly the importation of them banned. And he was running into all kinds of trouble. Our relationship, Clinton was president during this term. Our relationship with China was just thawing some, but it had been strained. The Chinese were making hundreds of millions of dollars. It was their army. It was manufacturing and selling the attack weapons in the United States. It was a big source of income for the army. And the people at the head of the army were very wealthy men. They were a part of the big wealth contingent in China at that point. And they certainly didn't want their money interfered with. So Clinton did not want to introduce legislation from the White House, draw up legislation, put it in the congressional hopper that would have eliminated the weapons. He didn't want to be seen that way. He knew that that would make him an enemy with the Chinese. He was trying to massage the relationship with China. He told Markey that Markey should introduce the legislation. And Markey said he's happy to drop the legislation and introduce it, but unless the administration got behind it, it was never going to pass. The NRA was too powerful, and some part of the administration needed to support this legislation. And he said it could be the State Department, that the State Department let the Congress know that they thought the Chinese might bellow a little bit, but it really wouldn't hurt the ongoing thaw. Maybe the Congress would be willing to pass the legislation on recommendation from state. It could be the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Drug Administration of the executive branch. That's a branch of the IRS. If the people responsible for monitoring and working with guns in the United States would say, this is an important thing and it would make the United States a better place, and if they would take the leadership position on behalf of the administration, the legislation would probably pass. And so my daughter was assigned starting a dialogue with the State Department and a dialogue with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And both of those entities in government have what's called a legislative liaison to the Congress. They're supposed to speak to the Congress on behalf of their bosses, and they're supposed to bring back to their bosses things that may be boiling in Congress that their bosses should be interested in. So she had two legislative liaisons to talk to, one from Alcohol, Tobacco, and Drug Administration, and the other from the State Department. The State Department representative person to the Congress was very cold and unsympathetic, and made it very clear she was wasting her breath. She should stop bothering them. They weren't going to do this. Things were just dicey with the Chinese. They certainly were going to not do anything to stir up the pot with the Chinese. And the Chinese were not stupid. They would know who was supporting the legislation. And if the State Department was supporting the legislation, that would be the kiss of death on some delicate negotiations that were going on. So she tried alcohol, tobacco, and what's the third one? Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And their legislative liaison was a young man she was in her late 20s. He was only about 27. She was 29 or 30 by that time. He was a little bit younger than her, but he was a real hotshot, a real bright guy. He had his family had been friends with Congressman Benson from Texas, who had gotten him placed in alcohol, tobacco, and firearms because the young man was really interested in perhaps pursuing a career in government. So this was his entry position, and they found him worthwhile. And articulate and compelling, so at a young age, they assigned him to be their legislative liaison, to mind the business of the Congress and report back to them about Congress. So she started to massage him. And he didn't just reject her out of hand. I think because she seemed like an interesting person. He was interested in her. So he listened to her for a while. But after a while, she turned him partly into an advocate. He was agreeing with her that this was probably a good thing for the country. And he tried to start advocating in-house with his bosses for what she was telling him to do. And they told him to stop it. It was not going to fly. This is not a good time, and we're not going to take this one up. This is none of our business. So he reported back to her. So now she started to get on him. She started getting newspapers from various parts of the country, and she started clipping the articles about gun deaths in various places. And she would send him by courier a clipping for a newspaper. Do you see that 13 more people were gunned down in drug warfare by youth on the streets of Detroit? How many more people are you and your bosses willing to have killed before you start supporting this legislation? She started to shame him and humiliate him. She was telling me about what was going on, and I'm whispering to my wife, this is a 1930s love romantic story. These are two people who are fighting with each other, cats and dogs, but secretly they're very attracted to each other. And I wouldn't be surprised if our daughter came out of her shell. So I went to visit her once, and she invited him to lunch. She wanted me to help persuade him that he was wrongheaded. And I found him a thoroughly likable, interesting, articulate, bright young man. And I could tell the way he was looking at my daughter that he was finding her attractive. He wasn't just debating why it was impossible for him to proceed. But there was a spark between the two of them. And I came back from that meeting and said, yes, there is something very romantic in the background that can't come to the surface because of their respective positions in governance right now. But when this is over, something is going to blossom. And I'm happy to report to you, you don't have to fret about our daughter. It's just taken her longer to do this than anybody else. She is getting ready to have some kind of greater involvement with somebody and to pick somebody to explore intimacy with. It's beginning already. So I will stop there. That's a nice cliffhanger. And I will tell you about her evolution and my relationship with her beyond what I've already filled you in. And this will be a two-parter. And oh, I guess we're not going to do it next Friday or the Friday after because we have Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. It'll be 3 weeks from today that I pick up that topic again. And now I will throw this open.
Arthur, I have one question for you, and again, it goes back to, I guess probably kind of like at age 18 for Karen. How did she tell her biological father about the adoption?
She didn't.
Oh,
You'll
okay.
find out now.
Oh, gee, all right,
Didn't want to
Well,
hurt
that's,
him. Yeah.
okay. So
She
did he,
continued to visit with him occasionally and just carry on as
okay,
if nothing had happened.
wow. Did he learn about
By
that?
the way, I've never asked. I'll ask her. We're going to see her now. I'll ask her. Did he ever find out? Did he ever know?
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Oh, I seem to remember maybe in the background that he did find out. Yeah, or I may be hallucinating this, dreaming it and making it up, but I'll find out for sure because in this imagery I have somewhere between 18 and the present moment, not right after it happened, but somewhere along the path, he did find out and he said, I understand Arthur was always very good to you and very involved with you.
Okay, it made sense.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Wow.
really an epic upbringing. I just, I sit here thinking and feeling envious of Karen and what a great father she had, honestly. All the things you
Oh,
did together and yeah, it's just beautiful.
this is the one story of being a father that I just cherish. And I think I was an exceptionally good and present father and valuable father to her. And I gave her things when they seemed important to her, and I didn't pull at her when I thought she needed to pull away from me and go in her own direction.
Yeah.
And she was so receptive to you. It was
Yes,
remarkable.
yeah.
Yeah,
She was hungry like a sponge,
yes, yeah.
dry sponge who was soaking up water.
Mhm, mhm.
Like a dry swamp cooler medium.
What is that? What is that
It's
prickly stuff?
actually like it's straw.
Yeah, oh, I think it is straw. I think you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
just soaks up the liquid,
And
and
the
then
water
boy,
runs through it, and then through evaporative cooling, you get a
yeah,
very slightly cooler and humid house.
that's right.
Hmm.
Mildew starts growing in the house if you
Yeah,
run it a lot.
exactly. All
Okay, guys, let me wish you a
right.
wonderful holiday season. And I know
You
we're all
too.
going out to dinner together on New Year's Day.
Yes,
So
are
that'll be
we
good.
going to be meeting on the next two Thursdays or
I
what's the
assume
status?
so. We're going to show up and see who's there and if we're doing anything worthwhile, or we'll just decide to quit in 10 minutes. But
Okay,
we are going to meet.
come as you are.
Come as
Yep.
you are. Yes.
Sounds
Goodbye.
good.
Okay.
I love both of you.
Oh,
Yeah, we
thank you.
love
We love
love
you
you too.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
All right. Bye,
All
guys.
right.